All right, we will now get started. I'd just like to remind everyone again that captions are available both through the Zoom platform and available through the link that's provided in chat on screen text. And I'm now going to turn this over to Cameron Moore, CFILC's Director of Marketing and Communications. Take it away, Cameron.
Thank you, Russell. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real quick so I can get my PowerPoint up. So give me one moment, and then we'll get started. Everybody see okay?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So how's everybody today? Good?
Cameron, this is Megan. If you go down on the bottom right of your PowerPoint and click the little one that looks like a book, we'll all have a bigger view.
Oh, sorry about that. There you go.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So thank you all. And thank you to Russell. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak today. I am fairly new to CFILC. I am the Marketing and Communications Manager. I started back in August. So a little over 3 months ago, I began. I came all the way from Florida. I was born and raised in Fort Lauderdale. So my wife is actually from the California area, the Bay Area, actually. So we decided to move out here, closer to her family. So it was a big move for me. Over the past almost like 19 years or so, I worked at a museum, the Museum of Discovery and Science in Fort Lauderdale. And I was very fortunate enough to be in different roles as far as like group sales, marketing, customer service, things like that. So yeah, it was definitely a big change coming out to California, but so far I'm very lucky enough to be here, and thankful that Christina brought me on. I have gotten so much information and met so many great people so far in my role, so I'm just excited about meeting more people and getting a chance to talk to you guys today. I've heard so many things about the Do Network Summit. So I'm very glad to be involved. I know it's on a virtual scale, which is a little bit different, of course, but you know what? I think different is good in a way. So it allows us to be on another scale, another level. So yeah, I'm going to cover a few things in the marketing and communications world. And again, thank you to Russell because giving me this opportunity. And when Russell asked me to do this, I was like, wow, this is great, but there's so much to cover and there's so many things to talk about. It's like, oh my gosh, I could be here all day talking about marketing and communication. So I really wanted to kind of scale down a little bit and kind of cover the basics and go over some information. And of course, if you guys need any detailed information or any assistance in the future, you reach out to Russell or me. I'm very happy to help and kind of show you guys further. One thing about me, I like to definitely help out where needed and assist. And I look forward to meeting all of you as well. I know I met some of you guys last week, so that was pretty cool. And now I'm looking forward to meeting some more of you guys. So without any further ado, we'll get started with the communications and marketing presentation. So what is communications? Communications is the dissemination of messaging and promotions via a bunch of different outlets: sales, promotions, branding, and of course, online channels. The way we disseminate marketing materials is through electronic and printed publications. You'll notice that we'll send out newsletters, e-blasts, also includes magazines, blogs, and of course, social media. And when thinking about communications and what it means to your organization, you really want to think about a couple things. Number one, you want to define your audience. Who are you speaking to? Who is your audience? Who do you want to reach? You also want to create a clear and effective message. That could be a mission statement, perhaps. You want to really hone in on a couple key messages and really build upon that. And then, of course, you also want to determine your marketing mix, whether it's a mix of online, direct marketing, sponsorships, or even events. All these different things encompass communications and marketing. And we'll say that different sort of platforms work for different organizations. So what something might work for like a museum that I used to work at won't necessarily work for the CFILC where I now work. So different avenues for different organizations. And also communications includes you guys while you're speaking to your friends, while you're using your phone, while you're texting, while you're perusing social media, and while you're posting on social media, you are communicating as well. So just think about that. Everybody plays a role, whether or not you're actually a communications or marketing person, you're still doing something along those lines in your everyday life. So definitely think about that. For purposes of this presentation, and of course, considering the world that we're in and the virtual aspect, we're going to focus more on the digital aspect of communications and marketing, just because it's more relevant to where we're at and what we're doing in today's day and age. So we're going to first talk about social media, excuse me. And just like most of you, the Do Network has its own social media outlets. So does the CFILC and Yo Ability Tools. So part of my role is also helping to manage and post content for all of our social media pages. So I encourage you guys, if you haven't so far, to go ahead and like us and follow us on our social media platforms. And something that me and Russell were talking about when we were conceptualizing this was the fact that social media is not a one-person thing. It's very much a community thing. So everybody plays a role in it. Whether you are in charge of social media at your jobs or work, or whether you have it for leisure, you play an important role just by simply liking a post. You are doing something to help build the brand and build the audience. So definitely want to make sure you guys think about that. But do please take a moment to follow us and like us, because we do post a whole bunch of different content as far as like events or things that are relevant in our community, things like that. So we encourage you guys to stay connected. All right, so keeping on with social media, let's talk about some best practices. And I do want to go back to the idea that, different things work for different people and different organizations. So definitely want to keep that in mind. But the first thing I want to talk about is social media voices. And what is a social media voice? Well, it can be described in a word. It can usually be described as an adjective. It's usually like informative, positive, professional. What it really does to the voice is actually humanizes your brand. It makes you less of a robot, and it puts character behind your posting and your messaging on social media. So voices can vary depending on the audience, and it also can vary depending on the platform. So for example, you might find Facebook to have more of an informative voice where you're sharing content and you're informing the people. And for example, Instagram might have a more friendly voice. You might take that approach. So what I urge everybody to do is examine your company and culture and kind of find out what that voice is and what sort of messaging you want to get across using that voice. The next thing I want to talk about is responding to comments and mentions. Most people nowadays, they read reviews, they read responses, they read replies when they're public, and that's how they trust a brand. I was reading that over 90% of customers will read reviews of local businesses to determine its quality. So making sure that you are responding to comments, whether they're positive or negative, makes a huge impact on your brand. And if you do receive a negative comment, that does happen from time to time. People have certain opinions, of course. You want to make sure that you acknowledge it and you respond quickly. I'll give you an example. At my old job, there was somebody who, and this was when I was social media coordinator, they were not happy with their experience. They just had a really awful time. There was a lot of groups and schools there, and they just didn't have a good time. So they took to social media to let us know in a review. They gave us I think it was like a 2-star, and they're like, look, I just didn't have a good time, and they proceeded to tell us. So what we did, we wanted to craft a quick response saying, well, I'm sorry, Mrs. Jane Doe, that you didn't have a good time. We would like to offer you passes to come back on a different day And we would also like to throw in some IMAX movie passes too as well. And also, these are the best times to come, afternoons after like 1 o'clock, so you can avoid the large groups. Well, she actually wrote back and said, thank you very much. You guys are amazing. And she then proceeded to come back to the museum. And what she did was she took pictures and videos, and she actually posted it on our social media pages, actually taking it a step further and showing us just how much of a good time she had on her second trip. So the point is, it's always good to be transparent and relay feedback and stay positive, because even though you might get a negative response or a negative comment, you can definitely turn that into a positive. I'm a firm believer that, you know what, you can change the situation and change the narrative. Engagement also creates loyalty, and it generates word of mouth too as well. If you have a good experience somewhere, you're going to tell 2 of your friends or 5 of your friends, and 5 of your friends are going to tell 5 of their friends, and it really reverberates. So it's super important to make sure that you stay engaged. And one other comment that I want to make is, when you respond, you always want to try to leave a personal signature, either say, you know, your name like Cameron or Cameron M or something like that. It also humanizes it too as well, and it makes the consumer or customer feel like they have a closer relationship with you, instead of, again, being a robot. Because I know I don't want to talk to like somebody who just is robotic and doesn't have any emotion to it. So definitely adding a name to it or a signature really does help. Another best practice is Hootsuite. I know for me at the CFILC, managing different social media outlets and different programs, Hootsuite is a great content calendar. There is a price to it. It starts at around $29 per month, but that includes up to 10 social profiles. And it's a great way to stay organized and plan out your social media calendar in advance, so you'll know exactly what's coming up, and you can plan it out. It has a very nice calendar format too as well. And then also you can post to multiple accounts at the same time, which is really good. It's actually a time saver, and that way you don't have to go from one platform to another. You have it all laid out on Hootsuite, which I highly recommend. Number 4, identify the best times to post. Generally, industry best practices in midweek, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, with Wednesday being the best day. But I will say this, different sites and different places that you go to will say different things. I encourage you to not post at the same time or same day, but mix it up, which I'm going to get to a little bit more in the next bullet point. But try to see what day and time works for you. You know, sometimes it is midweek at 9 a.m., but other times it may be an off hour. Another thing you'll notice is it's not always about when you post, but it's also about what you post too as well. So whether it's a video or an engaging photo or something that really resonates with your audience, that will also help in creating and generating higher engagement as well. Because let's be honest, social media, it's a 24/7 thing. So you definitely don't want to limit yourself, and you don't want to keep it Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, because that's definitely not how the world works. And then finally, a best practice that I want to touch upon is mixing up your content. So don't all make it about, you know, like posts or just photos. You want to share relevant articles. You want to ask questions to your audience to generate engagement, share videos and things like that. Variety is important in everything. And that definitely includes social media too as well. Okay, so alt text, this is very important in our community. Basically, alt text for images and other objects is important for people who can't use or can't see the screen, I should say. Screen readers will read alternative text out loud, and it'll show or tell exactly what is on the screen. So if the platform, social media platform, has it available, you definitely want to add an alt text / image description, and you want to be accurate and succinct. So if somebody's wearing a hat, you don't want to say, oh, this dude just wearing a hat. You want to say wearing a red hat with an Atlanta Braves logo or something like that. So that way it gives more description to it, and people will really understand exactly what's being seen. And then for hashtags, you want to use camel case. And this is basically writing phrases without spaces or punctuation, and includes separating words with a single capitalized letter. And that, that will allow screen readers to hear the words individually instead of one long, incoherent word. So like, for example, happy holidays all, you want to capitalize the first letter in each of those words to make it coherent and, not ambiguous. All right, so social media definitions. These are just a few definitions that I have. Of course, there's so many words and lingos out there, but I wanted to share just a few with you guys who might be, new to the social media world. The first one is posts. So that's any social media status, update, photo, video, or item shared. So basically, if you're putting up a photo, that's a post. If you're sharing an article, that's a post, things like that. Now, caption is when you just have a description along with the social post. So for example, if you're sharing a photo of your organization, what's going on? Are you guys celebrating a holiday? Are you at an event? Something to tell exactly what is going on, because if you just throw up a photo, it's just kind of boring and it doesn't really give too much of a description. I do recommend that you include hashtags too, and you always want to at a local business. So for example, if you're working in collaboration with somebody or something, you want to at them so that way they get the notification on their end, and that way they can share or retweet to their followers, and that generates higher engagement, which is the next definition, and that is a form of interaction, likes, comments, tweets, retweets, and retweets too as well. Any kind of interaction that your posts get, it generates engagement. And then also impressions. This is how many times a post is displayed on a social network. So one user might have the same ad appear in the newsfeed multiple times, and each time that it appears would be considered an impression. 2, hashtags. So hashtags are a word or phrase using the pound sign. It's used on social media to be a part of a larger conversation. Hashtags are searchable. For example, we use Do Network Summit 2020 for the Do Network Summit. And basically, hashtags are labels used to find info with a theme or content, and it encourages users to explore content that catches their eye, and it's great for visibility. So, for example, let's say the election rolled around. You wanted to search about the election, you would search hashtag election 2020 or something like that. And that way you could see all the mentions of that certain particular hashtag. And then you can also join the conversation too, as well. And then we also have reach. Reach is the total number of people who have been exposed to a post or an ad. This can be both paid or organic. And it's content that appears on in a social feed at least once. And you might not have seen it, but you could have scrolled past it. And that also would be included in the reach too, as well. There's so many more definitions that we just don't have time to get into all of them, but there is a blog on Hootsuite, which I included here, and you guys can look at it later. It's got a huge slew, like a whole glossary of definitions, and I think it's really cool because there was some words that I didn't even know, and I'm like, wow. So definitely very enlightening, and I encourage you to definitely take a look at that when you have a free moment.
Cameron, this is Megan. We have a question in the chat here.
Oh, sure.
Alyssa wants to know, how do you choose the right hashtag for a post? How do I know what will help increase my reach?
Yeah, that's a great question. You want to choose a hashtag that works definitely with your organization, and also that is part of a long conversation. So for example, for the voting campaign, what we did was, which I'm going to get to in a little bit, we did a couple hashtags with that, disability vote and things like that, which is part of a longer conversation. We also did Disability Counts 2020, and then also hashtag votes. So you want to mix it up with both something that works with your organization, like Do Network Summit 2020, that can be a part of your conversation, and then also something part of a larger conversation like conference, hashtag conference or hashtag web conference, things like that. So you definitely want to mix it up.
And this is Megan. We'll add to that, and then Alyssa has an additional question.
Okay.
It's also really helpful to search your hashtag and see who's already using it, because you don't want to be using a hashtag that may be a group that you don't share their values is using.
Exactly.
So make sure you're searching your hashtags before you use them. And Alyssa said, how do you know which hashtags are available to use?
Well, you could also create your own hashtags too, as well, like we did for Do Network Summit 2020. But if you search it, you can search it on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. If you search a hashtag and then a word, you'll be able to see exactly how many people have used that hashtag, where it's being used, the top usages and everything. So yeah, you are able to search it within different social media platforms, and you'll be able to see who's using it and which top users are using it too. Like the people that have like a bunch of followers and whatnot. So yeah, you can definitely search it, and you can do it on all different platforms too as well to see what's available.
Cameron, while we're talking about hashtags and availability, I really want to tie this back to Megan's suggestion that you look at the hashtags. So if you're planning to use one, you've decided on one that you think is catchy and really does a great job of sending out the message that you're trying to send, then it's recommended to search it. But in terms of like availability for use, the really beautiful thing is, as Cameron alluded to as well, you can use multiple hashtags and connect to ones that have been long established. Like, for example, in the disability rights movement, hashtag Crip the Vote has been one that's been really popular and has promoted disability community's voice within voting. So, but it's just really important too to understand that other people, it can, the conversation can change over time too. So it's always important to look at the hashtags that you're considering using.
Yeah.
And in terms of lists, I don't believe that there's any huge index of list, correct?
No, there's not a huge index list. My recommendation would be to, if you wanted to see who's more using it and how it's being used, to search it on various social media platforms, but there is no real list per se. Also, another thing that I used to do is you can actually Google, like, for example, like Veterans Day, for example, you can Google Veterans Day plus hashtags, and there are some places where you'll be able to see also who's using a certain hashtag too as well. So you can do a quick Google search too, and that will.
Alyssa's question is, how can she know what hashtag CFILC in our programs are using so she knows to use them too?
Great question. Well, you can definitely email. I love that question. Also, you can, if you want a faster way to do it, like, for example, for Do Network Summit, if you look on our social media pages, you'll be able to see them too. I try to keep it consistent throughout Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, but you can always reach out to in advance of a particular program or promotion and ask, and we would be happy to share that information with you in advance too as well.
Can I kind of add something? I think,
of course,
my experience with social media, and I love what's happening in chat. This is a direct example of how social media works, in so much that when Cameron started off his presentation, he talked about how you are a part of communication as well. So when you're talking to your friends and colleagues and others, you really just want to start using the hashtags and kind of create a culture around it. So while we could give you a list of what we're using, and some of them will not change, right? Some of them will change, and we'll be constantly adding to them. So the best way is to watch our media feeds and just kind of get in tune with, when you see a new post that's on a new topic, or see a hashtag that you might not be familiar with, to investigate, what else is using it, or what kind of new conversation might be generated there. Jamie?
Thank you.
Yeah, Carl would like to make a comment, so go ahead, Carl.
I just said, Cameron, please correct me if I'm wrong here. Nearly.
Yes. Cameron, could you correct me if I'm wrong here?
But you can just make up hashtags and use them. You don't need to acquire them.
You can just make up hashtags and use them. You don't need to acquire them.
So there's no issue of getting a hashtag to use.
There's no issue of getting hashtags to use.
That's correct. You're absolutely right.
I want to emphasize making point that it is useful to search them before you use them.
I want to emphasize Megan's point that you can search them before you use them. Is that correct, Carl?
It is useful to,
It is useful too.
but you can just make one up and begin using them over.
But you can just make them up and begin using them.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're totally right, Carl. Like for example, we made up the Do Network Summit 2020 hashtag. And then what we did was we put it on our Zoom background too as well. So, and all our posts and our Zoom background. So you're absolutely right. You can make them up too as well, Carl. Totally right. And that will start a larger conversation too. Cool. Anybody else?
This is Megan. I'll just read a bit from the chat. Jamie
Thanks,
says
Megan.
you can hashtag anything really. For example, I'll hashtag on a social media post, hashtag, or I'm sipping hashtag pumpkin spice lattes during the fall.
Yep. Okay, was that it, or we got any more?
She also shared a couple other hashtags, which some of them are CFILC ones. So we have hashtag disabled and proud and hashtag yo disabled and proud. And said hashtags are seen more on Twitter and Instagram than on Facebook.
Yes, absolutely, that's true.
That's everything.
Good stuff, man. You guys are, I love the chatting. I love the participation. All right, so we'll go a little bit forward now. So I want to give you an example of something that we've done. So this is a social media campaign about the census. And a social media campaign starts like months in advance. So like the census was something that was started and implemented even before I came to the CFILC. And I kind of came right in the middle of it. I know we partnered with our friends Dredif to identify a marketing plan and toolkit and implement it. And basically it was, why is the census important for the disability community and older adults too as well. So you'll see one of the tweets that we did, which got very high engagement. We used hashtag disability counts, hashtag seniors counts 2020. And then we also put 2020 census in there too as well. This was something that garnered almost 3,000 impressions, which was really good. We actually asked people to retweet this post to remind their friends to complete the census. This was when the census deadline was October 31st. We had multiple changes to the census deadline, so we kind of had to roll with the punches as far as that's concerned. But that actually brings up a good point too, that you can plan these things out, but a lot of times, or sometimes I should say, things will sort of happen on the fly and things will change, so you have to be prepared for that. But this is something that was really cool because we used an image, we used our hashtags, we tagged Dredif in it too as well, and it got quite a bit of engagement and retweets and impressions too as well. So we were pretty impressed with that. And this was part of a larger campaign that we did. We were doing census posts almost daily. And again, this was implemented probably like 6 or so months. It probably was even more before I even came to CFILC. So this was something that was in the works. And generally, with these type of larger campaigns, you want to make sure that you do set them up months in advance, so you have a marketing promotion where you can promote to local companies, and then you can also do social media and promote to the media and press and things like that. So this was something that we did with the census that was really important because we wanted to make sure to target each region in California. And then what we did was we went back and targeted the low count regions as well, in order to have a higher census response, because it is important for the community, and it was important for the community. So that's one of them. And then another one that we did was the voting campaign. Russell had come up with a really cool Make Your Plan toolkit, and we took that and we made a voting campaign to get out the word. One of the things that we did was we shared the California propositions. There was quick reference guide, ASL guides that were shared, and we shared all of them. And it was really important because we wanted to make sure that people knew exactly what each amendment was about, so they could go and come in informed and know exactly how to vote and what to do. Because some of the amendments, let's be honest, were rather confusing. So we wanted to make sure to generate daily posts leading up to that. And it covered a lot of propositions. And then we also shared the resources that were on the Do Network page too, as far as making a plan, where the local election center was, how to, vote, et cetera, et cetera. So we really thought that that was important to get out the word with that. And then you'll see the more popular hashtags: Vote Disability, Crypto Vote, and Rev Up. So this had over 3,000 impressions. And this is also a YouTube video too. And I noticed that videos definitely garner more reach and more impressions. So you kind of see that with this as well. So very happy that garnered the engagement that we were looking for, because obviously voting is very important, not only for us, but for the greater community at large. All right, I also want to talk about MailChimp real quick. MailChimp is an email marketing platform. It's designed to manage, market, and promote to your clients and audience. Email still seems to remain the most widespread means of communication. And MailChimp does actually come at a cost too as well. It depends on your audience numbers. So it's free for up to 2,000 contacts. After you hit that 2,000 contact plateau, there will be different charges. It has great analytics, including how many opened your email, which links were clicked most frequently, who opened up your email most frequently, how many people unsubscribe, and then also how the response rates compare to the industry average too as well. So you can kind of see how well you're doing compared to other people in the industry. You can create and manage your own mailing list, newsletters, and automated marketing campaigns. And then, of course, like I said before, it's crucial to grow business and increase reach, because it is definitely, email seems to be the most widespread means of communication. There is a tutorial, which you guys can see on your own time. I'm going to pull up MailChimp in just a second to kind of give you an idea of how it works. But I highly recommend getting this for your organization, because it's a great way to keep people informed about all of your events and activities going on, and it is relatively easy to use. For those of you who are kind of like iffy about it, trust me, it's something that after you do a couple of times, you'll be a MailChimp pro. A couple of things to add on to that. Email list, a good rule of thumb is to ensure that your previous/existing email accounts were active in the last 6 months. If you have anything older, they will probably tend to unsubscribe or not even open it at all. So you want to make sure that it's relevant. Drag and drop features, which I'm going to show you in a second. It has box text, images, social share. So it's very, again, user-friendly to use. It's got a preview and test tool. So you can preview anything, make sure that all the images are correct, no misspellings, punctuation, etc. And you can send that to yourself. So you're able to see how it looks to other people, both not only in email, but on mobile too as well. So you can make sure that it looks top-notch and make sure that you have all of your mistakes corrected before sending that out. So that way you don't have like an oops anywhere. And then another great thing that MailChimp does is before you even send it out, it has a send time optimization. So it actually will tell you, Wednesday at 1:30 is the best time to send this out. And you can actually send it out during that time, and that will actually help with the open rate and the click-through rate, because it's giving you that information based on industry practices and also what you've done in the past too as well. So just going to pull up MailChimp real quick so you guys can see. And basically I just named it as test. You can edit the name. You can see who you're sending the campaign to, so you can add recipients. Let's say you wanted to just send it to the Do Network. Well, you can send it to there. If you wanted to send it to a broader audience, it's something that relates to a larger scale, you can change your recipients. You can change it. So if you wanted it to be the Do Network, you could change it from Do Network or CFILC. The subject line, it's very important. You want to make sure that you create a subject line that's engaging, that will increase your open rates. And also, MailChimp has a cool subject line guide that will actually help you and sort of guide you and show you what will work best. And then also you can see how your recent subject lines perform. So if something didn't really work out too well, you can be like, all right, we're going to stay far away from there and try something a little bit different. And then also the preview text is something else. So let's say you wanted to say in your subject line, Do Network Summit is tomorrow. And then in the preview text, you could put limited space available, register today. So it gives it that little extra oomph, if you will. So I'm going to cancel out of that. And then also the content. This was what I was alluding to earlier. You can add in pictures. You can create content, like as far as like text is concerned. And of course, my computer is very slow. Hold on one second. Gotta love it. While we're waiting for that to pull up, yeah, you can definitely change the body of your email to work for you. And it's still thinking, but as you can see to the right, it's got different boxes. So if you wanted to include more text, you would just drag your text over. You can include box text, dividers, which I think are very important, that kind of spaces it out. It's got image groups, image cards, social follow, which is very important. You want to include your social media links so people can click for more information. And then of course, buttons, which are call to action, like register for the Do Network Summit or tickets available or something like that. And then you can put footers, videos too, which I think is super important. And then of course, if you have any products or promo codes, you have it as well. So MailChimp is very user-friendly in the fact that you can do so much with it, and it's just, it doesn't take very long. And I'm going to scroll down and just show you, you can have a heading, bullet points, there's your little button to click for more, and then you got your social links below as well. So definitely highly recommend MailChimp. It is something that will help your organization as far as sending out messaging or important announcements and things like that. I do want to say that with MailChimp, you want to limit how much you do per week. I would try to limit it to no more than 2 e-blasts at the most, because you don't want to inundate your customers or your clients and have them unsubscribe. So you want to definitely space out your messaging and make sure that you have like the content calendar so you can see, okay, this date we're going to be targeting this event promotion, or this date we're going to do this. So I definitely recommend you do things or schedule it out in advance, so that way you're not having a backlog, if you will, and sending out too much at once. Because I know for me, I get a whole bunch of different emails from a certain place, and I'm just like, oh God, here we go again. It's such and such organization. It's like, wow. And sometimes I'll just delete it. I don't know about you guys, I'm kind of lazy, so I don't want to like unsubscribe, so I'll just click delete, not even open it. So we want to limit the non-opens and also unsubscribes too as well. And then finally, some like thoughts that you want to think about, when you're doing social media or digital marketing or any kind of communication really, is what kind of content is important to you, because what's important to you will also be important to your clients too as well, and what messaging
Cameron,
is important.
This is Megan. I think we have a few comments and questions on MailChimp.
Okay, cool.
So Alyssa and then Christine.
Awesome. I, for some reason, can't see the chat. So,
with MailChimp, there's a free version, and I have experience with that one. You want to make sure that you have all of the listservs added to your audience, because if you don't have all your listservs and all the local businesses and all the emails and everything, you don't get to resend an email. You only get one shot to send it off. And so you want to make sure your Facebook, your Twitter, your Instagram, well, actually you don't get Instagram with the free version. You only get Facebook and Twitter, and all the listservs and everything are all in the same audience, because you can't even have two audiences. So just make sure that you have everything set up ahead of time, where you have collected everything that you want, everything you want it to go to, because afterwards you can't even save it as a JPEG to be able to redistribute it on your own. It's saved as a link, a web link, and that web link isn't even available in many formats. It's really tricky. So yeah, just saying.
Oh, thank you, Alyssa.
So I'm very concerned about accessibility in screen readers. How does it do with all these different additions and configurations as far as trying to have screen readers read these things?
So it is accessible. I know that when we add like photos and stuff, we'll always make sure to do alt text, and then we want to make sure that the font is used so that way it is accessible to everybody. So we did find that MailChimp is more accessible than other platforms that would be out there.
So this is Russell. And Cameron, I don't know if you want to pop back over maybe to MailChimp for a minute,
Sure.
but we can show, maybe demonstrate how to use how to add alt text to something.
Mm-hmm.
If there's an image maybe that we can.
Yeah.
Is there maybe a?
Mm-hmm. So yeah. So for example, it's got just like the basic add a photo here, and if you can replace it, edit, and add a link to it as well. And then there's this alt text, alt right here. So if you click on that, you'll be able to put in your alt text.
Right. And
I know some other platforms don't do that. So actually this is very useful.
Yeah. And just when you're setting up your, and this is actually something that I'm not as familiar with, and Cameron, maybe you can show us, is how to set the default text size and font. Is there a way to easily do that for kind of on a
whole? You can change your fonts here. As far as default, what you want to do is you would do a campaign, and then what I do is copy from a previous campaign, so that way the fonts and everything are all set, ready to go for the future. But you're able to change fonts here, and it's got Arial and different ones that you could use that are accessible. And then of course you can change the size and styling too as well. But for me, best practice, when I came into the organization, I copied because what we were doing before was accessible. So I wanted to make sure to stick with that and not change up the format too much, because what we had was working and it was easily accessible for all. So my recommendation is to start with something new. Make sure you have your fonts the way you like it, your sizes that are accessible, and then from there you can copy to a future campaign, and it's got everything all ready to go, and you can actually plug different photos in and play around with the headings and different things like that. So that is something that I would recommend, and I do personally.
Alyssa's added in chat that MailChimp sends a screen reader friendly version with every mailing that it sends out.
Yeah.
So
it's
again,
very accessible.
Relies on you to fill out that alt text, but also Megan and Cameron, in terms of like choosing fonts and that sort of thing, we want to make sure, and this is something you'll definitely want to check with your organization on, but using a font of a large enough size, typically at least 18 point, is recommended for most text.
This is Megan. We actually, through our Ability Tools program, have a couple of archived accessibility webinars on the basics of Microsoft Office and PowerPoint. So I'll go ahead and share those links in the chat if folks are looking for more info on accessibility.
Yes, and I will just say from a personal standpoint, I found those to be very helpful. That's how this is my first presentation that I've done since I've been here. So I took what was in that presentation and I applied it to my PowerPoint. So thank you, Megan, for setting those up, because they are very helpful. And for somebody who's new to the organization, I learned a lot of tips and tricks, and I'm still continuing to use those and will do so going forward. So, great. Is there any other comments? All right, so yeah, just a couple thoughts that you guys kind of want to have to think about when you're setting up social media or marketing campaigns, is what kind of content is important to you and also important to your audience too as well. What does social media mean to you and mean in the era of COVID-19? We're in a different world. I mean, things have changed so much in the past 8 months, so you have to kind of keep that in mind when we're thinking of social media and promotions and marketing too, because we've had to definitely pivot. And not that it's a bad thing, but it's definitely something that, we've had to definitely keep in mind and keep at the forefront, because marketing and communications and social media is always changing. But this year, especially with COVID, we've learned that we've definitely had to do more pivoting, but definitely keeps us on our toes, that's for sure. And then also, what key messages that system change advocates hope to get across in the coming year? What things do you think that your audience would appreciate and understand and want to learn more about? And then also, what communication strategies have you used in the past? Do you find effective? You definitely want to implement those too as well, and kind of use those strategies and go forward, because it's definitely something you want to keep in mind. And so with that, I will conclude it, my presentation. I have my email there, Cameron@cfilc.org. Super excited to work with you guys more and definitely continue on through the next year. I feel like this is just the start for me, and I'm so, again, happy that I was able to do this presentation at the summit and be a part of it. And I want to, definitely thank Megan, and also thank you, Russell, for putting this on, because this is definitely, especially in a virtual world, more of a Herculean effort. And so I want to thank you guys. And like I said, definitely I'm very open and I'm very, much communicative. So definitely, please don't hesitate to reach out to either Russell or I. And if, again, you guys need assistance or help, by all means, we're an organization as one. I look at it as we're definitely working together. We're a team, I feel. So as such, I want to make sure that we are working together as a team, and also making sure that we're communicating together and building our audience and building our messages, because that's what it's all about. And it will be crucial definitely to do that as we continue on in a virtual world over the next year or plus. So thank you, everyone.
This is Megan. I'm just going to read the chat, and Talmadge, I saw you had your hand up too if you'd like to speak still. Lonnie says, yes. I would love to have an ongoing social media networking of sorts among ILCs, and a couple folks agreed. And this is something, Cameron, we might want to look at resurrecting. I think we actually have a Facebook group for ILC social media folks, but I'm not sure. I know we have a lot of staff turnaround, so that's something we can maybe look into. And Talmadge, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Cameron, for the pointers and the presentation. I want to reinforce what you were saying in the beginning about being able to disseminate and mixing up the information when you're using social media, because we are representing an organization. So when we're doing this and you say mixing it up, I'm thinking that we should reinforce it by, want to know, how do we make sure we disseminate the content for the mission of our center's goals, your grant provisions, and the best practices for the consumers and the clients. Over.
Yeah, and did you have more that you wanted to say?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and mixing it up, I feel like, different, like I said, different things work for different organizations. But I feel like when I'm saying mixing it up, definitely like the content-wise, there's so many things out there that are relevant to the community. And so like with different articles, I like to share just starting a broader conversation too as well, and asking, oh, what does this mean to you? And not just throwing out the information, but also trying to start a conversation, and then also sharing videos. And when I talk about videos, I know it's definitely harder when we're virtual. But for example, for events that we do, definitely reaching out to like the directors and the system change organizers, and doing short clips of events that are coming up. Like for example, having like in the future Russell do kind of like a 30-second video welcoming people or saying what system change means to him. So not only just like sharing information, but really humanizing it. What does the information mean to you guys? I think that doing that, and then also like Facebook chats, Twitter chats, things like that, Facebook Live, I should say, is super important too, because that really generates the conversation. And I like it because people engage more, and so just doing things like that, mixing it up, I feel makes it less boring and more relevant. And then also, I love the idea of getting the ILCs together to do a social media page and resurrect, like Megan was saying, having like a monthly meeting or something like that, or quarterly meeting, so we can really be all on the same page with that and bring all of our ideas together. Because I mean, you all have some great ideas, and I think being on the same page would definitely help us. And that way, we can promote it our end, you can promote it on your end. And like I was saying before, it's definitely a team effort. So I want to do that. I want to create a larger conversation, and I want to do that sooner rather than later.
This is Megan. I just wanted to add Facebook Live and videos and whatnot are fantastic, and we love using them. But just make sure that you have captions or some sort of access feature in them. Absolutely. So that everybody has access to those videos that you're creating. And then another thing that I know that we like to do a lot and encourage you guys to do is tag each other on social media. When Cameron's posting something, he will tag all the ILCs. And you guys feel free to tag each other too.
Absolutely. And that helps with engagement and reach and analytics too as well. So it's definitely a community thing. Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Cameron.
Thank you guys. I really appreciate your time. And like I said, feel free to reach out if you have any more questions or need any help with anything. I'm looking forward to working with you guys closer as we move forward. So I'm very excited about that. And thank you again, Russell. Appreciate everybody.
Thanks, Cameron. Can we go back maybe to the slide right before your final one? I think that there were some really good questions. I think that maybe we can actually open up some discussion about.
Absolutely.
Because they were very good questions, and I'd love to hear kind of in this space. Maybe we can share with one another, because I really think, I think a lot of times, and maybe I'm wrong, but I know that when I was in the director of advocacy position at Resources for Independent Living, I kind of found myself being part-time manager of all the social media. And sometimes, depending on your role, you might be really in a position where a lot of the broad, big picture conversations, like how do I represent my agency, and some of these things are, your responsibility, or maybe it's part of a group's responsibility. But you got to really think about, not just posting, but also how are you having the conversations about inside your organization about the kind of voice and other things that you want to develop for your organization. So I'm curious, does anyone have anything on this slide here with these questions that they'd like to react to or share maybe an experience of? I know that some of the people in this that have joined, and in fact, the whole idea for this session was generated from our census calls, where some folks were sharing experiences about social media, and other folks were a little bit less well-versed. So I'd love for us to kind of share our collective experiences and learn from one another.
And this is Megan. I'll read the slide out for folks. So the questions or thoughts, it says, what types of content is important to you? What does social media mean to you in the era of COVID-19? What are key messages that systems change advocates hope to get across in the coming years? And what communication strategies do you find effective?
Christine's death.
Go ahead, Christine.
So, a little bit of background. I've had a hit or miss with social media, partially because it was sort of helped along with the aid of the Yo, but we don't have a Yo right now. And trying to get all the ducks in a row is somewhat difficult. What I hope to do going forward, especially since we're in the COVID era, if you will, is a far better outreach and messaging that matches, where I would like to see things go. And that's one of the reasons why I was asking about MailChimp and the Hootsuite. Those seem like really good resources, and I hope to look further into that.
Yeah, and Christine, you bring up a good point about the Yo, and I'm hoping that some people on this call can help with that. I'm a little bit older than youth at this point. I do try to find engaging and relevant content, but yeah, if I know there were some volunteers that were on the call, if they would like to help out with that or kind of collaborate with us so we can, I know we don't have a youth organizer right now at the CFILC, but in the meantime, if we can kind of bridge the gap, I would love to look forward to having that conversation and kind of seeing, what is important to the youth nowadays. I'm not calling myself old, but I'm older. I'm not going to lie, so I'm a little bit further removed from the youth than I would like to be. But that's definitely a conversation that I would like to have in the future, especially with those that work closely with Yo, helping to build that up a little bit further, because I think it's so crucial to hit the youth and make sure that they stay engaged as well.
Thanks. Also, Lonnie has just put in chat, meetings would be great to get on board with each other, especially since ILCs have a very different approach than many other nonprofits.
That is so true.
That's
and actually, that brings up a point that I was saying earlier. Like, the nonprofit that I worked for before is totally different than the CFILC. So absolutely, I think it's so important that we're on the same page and we kind of hone in and work together. I'm all for that. And I think that would be great to do.
I also would want to work with the youth, like with the Yo Disabled and Proud, because we're going to be doing stuff here in Drill. So I want to also connect with them too.
Great. Yeah, and I think if we can, I know you guys have my email, if you guys can reach out and we can work offline together, that's something that definitely is on my goal sheet, is to, increase that and further build upon it, especially in the transition.
How about these middle questions here, especially? What does social media mean to you in the era of COVID-19, and what are the key messages that systems change advocates hope to get across in coming years? Perhaps we can have a very short discussion, and then in about 10 minutes, I'd like to break, give ourselves a break, and then we can come back and talk a bit about the steps of building a campaign and actually start thinking about one that we've had coming, and talk a bit about some messages we can put together here.
And this is Megan. Pilar wrote in the chat, maybe we can create a blog reaching out to the disability community to hear their needs and wants for systems change, and all who responds we can connect. And that's a great idea, Pilar. I know Yo Disabled and Proud and Ability Tools have blogs. I don't think the DoNet does, though.
No, the DoNet doesn't yet have a blog, so perhaps this can be a space that generates those the conversations about what that would look like.
Absolutely, and I'm happy to help set that up so we can get that going. I think it's a great idea.
Could I just make a comment?
Could I just make a comment?
Of course, yeah.
I just want to underscore the importance of having a unified social media strategy across your ILC.
I just want to underscore the importance of having a unified social media strategy across your ILC.
Russell said that sometimes we almost become the de facto social media managers at our centers.
Sometimes we almost become the de facto social media manager at our centers.
Because we are one of the few positions not providing direct service every day.
Because we are one of the few positions not providing direct services every day.
So I want to encourage people on this call to take advantage of that position.
So I want to encourage people on this call today to take advantage of this position.
But remember that you need to be unified in your messaging across the center.
But remember that you need to be unified in your messaging across the center.
Yeah, absolutely, Carl. You make a very valid point. Consistency is key, and I'm going to talk to Russell. We're going to get some kind of meeting on the books so we can all talk and make sure that we're on the same page, because it is so important in our line of work. And yeah, if you would like to join too, Carl, I think that'd be awesome, because I'd love to have you join in and hear your insight too as well. So that way we can make sure that we are all on the same page. And you bring up another good point, that a lot of your guys' organizations are very small. So yeah, a lot of you guys are just the de facto marketing person or social media person. And so, yeah, we want to make sure that you're supported too, as well, when it comes to that, because let's be honest, we all have a lot on our plates. So yeah, it's important that we're all together, unified, and that we're feeling supported too.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. I'm also curious, just briefly, and then we'll take our break. Does anyone have anything that recently, how has COVID-19 changed the way that you use social media? Have you noticed that you're using it more? Have you seen that your use of social media has actually increased your ability to hold, for example, advocacy meetings or any other activities that your center typically does? Has social media been kind of a way to help? Have you noticed that shift?
This is Megan. I'm not sure if you can see hands on Zoom, but Talmadge has their hand up.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Talmadge.
Thank you, Megan. That's what I wanted to respond to was this COVID era has actually, given us a platform to create our own procedures and protocols, because during this pandemic, no one was able to answer any of our questions while we were panicking in the beginning. We are making a great transition into learning new steps on how to assimilate and get through these newfound barriers that we have so that we can maintain our independence. Sometimes these jobs are what we have, and helping others is the drive. We don't learn how to get this connection and also learn how to teach other people how to turn on access for us so that we can communicate with them at the same time. That's what this era, I believe, has brought, this internal growth and independent growth for us as advocates. And this is a great platform and time to create a blog platform, because we have ILCs that can do a meeting and a social media meeting to share ideas. So we create our a procedure and protocol together that we can uniformly use to work together, to ask each other questions safely, comfortable. Over.
Thanks, Talmadge.
Yeah, thanks.
I also see that Pilar has said, true, Carl, we are used to being out. Now with this change, our outreach to community is through social media. We need to create a systems change Facebook. Perhaps that could look like a space, a page for us to share tips and strategies and have communication with one another, and to help voices or to hear voices and help make change virtually. And Khalud says, I agree, Pilar. All right, I'd like to take a break, and let's do a 10-minute break. And then whenever we come back, let's talk a bit about our pedestrian sidewalk and access survey that the Do Network has been working diligently on, and talk about how we might get this out into the community and build a social media toolkit. Because I think this is one of the instruments that we can use as a team to help promote things and to make sure that we're getting things out effectively into the community. So let's take a break and be back in 10 minutes. So at 2:03, so just a couple minutes after 2.